Hey, it's Chris Hassel and Andrew Downs from Instant Iowa, the fastest reaction to every Hawkeye football game. Maybe the most emotional as well.
Yeah, celebrate with us when they win, commiserate with us when they lose. Either way, we're going to be here.
Yes, we will, right here on Iowa Everywhere, instantly after every Hawkeye football game.
Nate Bargatze.
It's a lot to have two dogs, because you got to open the back door and let two dogs out.
Big Dumb Eyes World Tour, Casey's Center, Friday, April 24th. Tickets available at natebargatze.com.
Chad Leistikow, Scott Dochterman, the two biggest Hawkeye and Big Ten beat writers, together on one show. GameDay Men's Health proudly presents Legends and Listeners, best enjoyed with an easy Eddie from Big Grove Brewery. This is Legends and Listeners, exclusively on Iowa Everywhere.
Hey, Hawkeye fans, Big Ten fans, and Iowans everywhere. Welcome into the Channel Seed Studios. It is harvest time, right? Harvest Moon's coming out for another edition of Legends and Listeners. We are in our 117th episode, and we are presented, as always, by GameDay Men's Health. Chad Leistikow here of the Des Moines Register, Scott Dochterman of The Athletic. We do not have an Instant Iowa show like Chris and Andrew Downs, so we don't do a post-game pod, Scott, but let's get a quick reaction on Iowa's shellacking of Minnesota 41-3. We were both there Saturday afternoon.
Okay, that was a shellacking, no question about it. It was one of the more convincing wins we've seen from Iowa. I think some fans may compare it to the 05 game, I think, where they just jumped on them early and it just was pretty relentless, except this time Minnesota really didn't score. They only scored because of some dumb penalties. But it was the first half, and it was so dominant in every single phase. I mean, they scored running the ball, passing the ball. They scored a passing touchdown. Punt return, interception return. They finally got over the goal line for that after 2 straight weeks of reaching the goal, almost there. And then they finished it off with a backup quarterback scoring a touchdown, which was, should have warmed everybody's hearts. So, and they held the mighty Gophers to 133 yards. I think overall that was their best performance. It was better to me than what went on in Madison, simply because I think Minnesota's a better team. Right. And they did it so early, and earliness, really matters to me. If you did it, it was 3-0 at halftime, and then you did it all in this third and fourth quarters, it doesn't have the same feel as just smoking them out in the first 18 minutes of action. Yeah, definitely. I've been enjoying the ANF podcast lately, and those guys do a good breakdown on stuff. I feel like they're a good complement to ours because they really get into the X's and O's. Like, we get into it some, but we also do big picture. So I feel like it's a good complement to theirs. So I don't feel like I'm, hurting our podcast by publicizing theirs. But they asserted on this week's pod, which I want to get your reaction to, and I thought it was a good point potentially, that they thought that those 18 minutes of football were had to be some of the best 18-minute stretches of football played by any team in the country this season. Now, I know you covered Indiana, Illinois, and that was one of the games they referenced. Well, maybe not better than that, but it really was like an unbelievable onslaught to get to 31-0. I mean, it was early second quarter where it was 31-0, Scott, and you had scored on offense, defense, special teams. I think Minnesota had 1 yard at that point when they punted to Kaden Wetjen. So, you got the passing touchdown, like you said. Gronowski looked good. The running game looked good. The defense looked unbelievable and scored. That's kind of like the team we envisioned that this could be in those 18 minutes. Not, we knew that they would be good at some point, or we knew that they could be good, and that was kind of a reflection of that, I feel like. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was that different from what I saw in Bloomington against Illinois. I think Illinois and Minnesota are very comparable. Illinois maybe just a tad better. I think they'd probably win by 3 to 7 points against Minnesota. But I think overall that
what Iowa did and was capable of doing was exactly what Indiana did. Indiana just did it for a longer period of time and was much more aggressive offensively, I think, in the second half, because it was like 35-0 or 42-0 at half. I mean, it was real comparable. And Iowa tends to take the air out of the ball in the second half, and they're up big and they're nice to they're Minnesota nice to their.
They were, yeah.
Yeah. So no, I don't disagree at all with their assessment that it was that good. I mean, this is a team that's playing really, really well, and don't be afraid to get excited about that. I mean, it all may come to a halt. They may lose to Oregon. They may lose to Oregon and USC. That's possible. They're good teams. They're teams that are in the thick of the playoff hunt, just like Iowa is. But with maybe the good thing is for Iowa fans, you have 10 days. Allow yourself to get excited about your favorite football team instead of instead of the Eeyore. Oh well, this isn't going to last, and we know the Ferentz isn't going to call it aggressive. No, don't worry about it. Be excited, and when it happens, and if they win, allow yourself to be excited again. If they don't, well, it wasn't meant to be. But I think too often, we spend 9 months. Can't wait for football. We talk football incessantly every waking day of the year, which we should.
Only 4 games left, folks. Only 4 games left.
There's only 4 days, 1 more month, 4 games left, and then whatever comes after that. Yeah. But allow yourself to enjoy it, and don't be afraid of the letdown. The letdown may happen, but you got 10 days. Yeah. Be excited. Beat your chest. Be happy.
I say be happy. Don't over trash talk. Just be happy. Be happy that your team is in this position. Like just enjoy it, like Scott said. And I was talking to one of the coaches, and they shared your assertion that they took their foot off the gas, because I was like, the running game sort of like didn't look as good once Bo Stevens went out, and once it was 31-0, they didn't do much. But he was like, yeah, we just we had a lot of stuff we could have called. We didn't. We just kept it in the bag, and it was like fighting with a rubber knife, he said. So so in other words, if Iowa had the Cignetti mentality, who knows? It could have been worse. But 41-3, it was a domination, and I'm kind of glad they punched it in the end zone with Hecklinski a little bit there. I feel like putting Hecklinski in gives you more license to like do stuff too,
Oh yeah, it does.
And so it was fun to see them punch it in. It was fun to see Cam Buffington get a pick. I mean, there was like almost nothing to complain about the other day. Drew Stevens was on.
Yeah.
Really, really crazy fun game for everyone in attendance. And you got this, for once you didn't lay an egg on CBS, Yeah, I feel like I've been in that 2:30 window. They got it for the Iowa State game this year. They lost. That was this year, right? Or was it last year? Was it this year too?
It was last year.
This year was Fox. Last year was Iowa State. They lost that one too. But anyway, let's talk about the poll, because I
want to add one
go for it.
Thing here, and that is there was one thing that got a lot of people upset, and I want to read the comment. And this is from the movie Blazing Saddles of 1974, a 50-year-old film by former Iowa graduate Gene Wilder. And when he's sitting in after somebody used a racial slur to the sheriff, he said, "You've got to remember that these are just simple farmers. They are people of the land, the common clay of the New West. Morons." Mike Grimm, who is the voice of Minnesota football, a lifelong Iowan from Manchester, Iowa, whose parents are farmers in Iowa, who loved this team almost his whole life, and now has a job calling Gopher games and is a fixture in the Twin Cities, uses movie quotes in a lot of the things he does. And it was at that time, I think it was 34-3, and he injected this as a term of endearment, a fun part in a telecast and a broadcast. And some of you took it as a complete and utter insult that Minnesota calling us morons. That's not the case at all. Laugh at this one. This is, first of all, one of the funniest movies, if not the funniest movie of all time. Two Iowa guys, Gene Wilder and Alex Karras, who's Mongo, over in that.
Right.
So I think let's light, as Sergeant Hulk has said in Stripes, lighten up, Francis.
I love Mike Grimm. Actually, he's a good
great
guy, great Iowan. I think whenever Dolph hangs it up, he would be a great choice to succeed Dolph.
If he does
He'd be
that,
tremendous.
Yeah, no question.
That should be Beth Getz's. Maybe I don't want to get into. I haven't looked around, but that would be one of my top calls if I'm Learfield / Beth Getz. Anyway, he's a good guy too. Anyway, so I agree. I didn't catch that whole deal, but I did see a little bit of that. Anyway, where was I? Rankings. Iowa didn't get ranked. Nobody's really like mad about it or anything. I think Iowa fans actually are embracing it in a way. But is it silly that they're not ranked? Like, what are they missing there, Scott?
Yeah, it is silly. And I know I've tried not to make this a, oh, woe is Iowa type of discussion, because then you look like a homer and you just want to kind of let it lay low. And I'm glad Iowa fans are taking that kind of, not necessarily as a slight, but more of a chip on the shoulder. That's the way the team should take it too. The problem has been, especially in this playoff age and expansion age, is there's so much poll recidivism. And you're seeing the teams that just can't fall out because they are not playing. The schedules are so elongated, in the SEC in particular, but also in the Big Ten, to where teams can't quite fall out. Then they win, then they stay in. Michigan being case in point. Michigan gets basically blown out at USC, goes to 25, and then it beats Washington and it stays in. And it's just kind of this back and forth. Texas and Joel Klatt really, when it did a comparison between Texas and Iowa, which was spot on.
That was a good one. Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Chad. I mean, yes, Iowa should have been ranked. I think they should be in the top 20. Mm-hmm. I think they're good enough to be there. But I also think wait a week or two before you start getting rah-rah on this one.
Yeah, and you and I were talking in the press box, and hopefully I'm not divulging something you don't want divulged, but I think you feel pretty strongly that the CFP will rank Iowa next Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And why is that?
They look at a lot of different measurements when it comes to the CFP, and certain things that they identify as really impactful and among those, defense is one that I think people that they look at in a lot different light than say what maybe the poll does. But the metrics are really fascinating. I had one person with the CFP we were off to the side and we were talking, and he actually brought up Iowa. He said it's really interesting the years that Iowa's good, because the guys who know football, the coaches or the players that study it, that they love watching Iowa, because when they're good, the fundamentals are there, the details are there, the execution's there, all the things that Ferentz preaches. And when they're good and they do it at a high level, it really just like, wow, did you see the way that they came across, the way they hit, kind of like looks like a piano keys on, when they're in their blocks, or defensively, the way they use their hands and shed blocks. And I mean, just the fundamentals that makes Iowa so successful. That's what they really key in on in their markers. And then there's other things like that they don't necessarily look at, like yards per carry allowed. They look at how much did you run for over, team's typical output. Like if you ran for 200 yards, but they traditionally allow 130, that's plus 70, or same thing with scoring, like, hey, this team usually allows, in Indiana's case, even though you lost that game, your marker is really good, because they average like 48, 45 points a game. You held them to 20. They usually give up, 8 or 9 or whatever, and you scored 15. So you have plus categories in just about every statistical measurement, plus their scoring is moving up. Their areas are looking strong anyway. So I have no doubt in my mind, I wouldn't be surprised if on Tuesday they're at 17.
Wow.
I think that they're going to be thought of very, very highly.
Yeah, I'm expecting something like 23, 24, just because they're Iowa. But I do the Joel Klatt Iowa-Texas comparison. I do encourage people to look at it. I'm not saying like, yeah, Iowa should be ranked ahead of Texas, but he makes a really good case for that. And I'm curious what the CFP committee will do with a team like Texas, that really was, if you do look at that closely, for example, I mean, again, I'm not here to stump for Iowa. I'm not being a homer on Iowa, but if you look at Texas versus Iowa here, Texas, it was on the road, obviously, but that game was not close, really. They were outplayed completely by Ohio State. Right. That ends up being a 7-point margin. But if you look at the Iowa-Indiana game, if you really look at the game, Iowa was toe-to-toe. And if Gronowski, and I do believe they should look at the fact that Gronowski got hurt in that game. And then Iowa was leading 13-10 in the fourth quarter when he was in the injury tent. So, and couldn't return. And now he's back, and look at what's happened since he's been back. I mean, they won 38 or 37-0. They beat Penn State and won 41-3. Yeah. So that's been the resume since he's come back, and that gives you the difference. And we said all along, folks, that at least people that ask me, I thought it would take a while for Iowa to get going with Gronowski. I thought that would be a slow process. And as Tim Lester talked about on Tuesday, the injury unfortunately unwound some of that pass game progress. But this bye week comes, I think, at a good time for Gronowski. So can they take the next step in that passing game? There was one more Are you good to keep going on this?
Yeah, you know what? I can kind of give you. There are 12 PowerPoints that they use.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
As their core. I mean, they look at 1,000 points of light. But these relative scoring offense, which is the percentage of offensive points scored relative to the opponent's average scoring defense. Relative scoring defense, basically in reverse. Relative total offense and relative total defense. And then there's scoring differential, relative starting field position differential, points per possession, points per point, plays per point, yards per point, those types of things. And then they also look at returning. They do not look at returning production, the ESPN Power Index, which other people do, or recruiting. And then they use other markers such as turnover margin, sacks, and what have you. So there's enough there that really defines, other than pass offense, Iowa's in a really good category. I mean, they're averaging, high amount of points, per game, which is, so that no more drive for 325. That's over with, I mean, they're at 31.3 points per game and they allow 13.1, so that's,
it's plus 18.
Yeah, you've got that category locked up, and so they're going to come out really strong. And then I do think, just based on the numbers and what they've done, and when you have people like D'Antonio on board, that they look at things intricately, and he's probably a good one. I think he would look at it in a way where it favors Iowa. Just simply because, hey, I think these are important parts. And then if you beat Oregon, then it shoots up. Then it goes really high. Then it go up to the top 12 probably.
Well, if they do get ranked in the CFP, I do think that's important, because if they can get ranked there and then they can beat Oregon, then you're right. I think then you're talking about a team that's probably already knocking on the door of 12. I mean, at that point. And then it's sort of like, can you win out? Which would be tough. It's still going to be tough to go at USC and home against Michigan State and at Nebraska. But we'll get to a short Iowa-Oregon preview just a bit later. We think that Iowa is in a good spot right now. We both picked Iowa to go 10-2, as you guys know. I had them going 6-2 in the first 8. That is where they are. So they got the win over Penn State. Did not get the win over Iowa State. Those are the ones I missed. I did have them losing in Indiana, but I had them winning out the rest of the way. So this is, I'm not saying they're going 10-2, but it's not. They've kind of gotten back on track to kind of where I thought they might be. But I did want to ask you, Scott, where do you think maybe some of our blind spots could be? Are we getting a little ahead of ourselves, saying they're a top 20 team right now? Is there spots where maybe we're giving Iowa too much credit? I don't know. I'm just trying to check ourselves here.
I think that there's some fair areas for critique, no question about it. I do believe they're a top 20 team, so it's a surprise to me that they're not there. I think what you look at, how do they match up with top 10 teams? Which Indiana was one. And there's obviously a clear deficiency in the pass game. That's not going to go away. It may get a little bit better, but it's still going to be, they're not going to be able to throw it with teams if they get behind. No question about that. I still think that they can be tested against a really good pass offense. And they've got maybe 3 coming up. I mean, USC's leading the country in offense. Oregon, of course, has super freshman and DeCorian Moore, and I mean, it's just a really tremendous. Dante Moore is terrific, and then Nebraska does have some good weapons on the outside and at quarterback. So they're going to get tested a little bit more at corner, and I think that's something to be concerned about. Running the ball defensively, they've been pretty good there, but they have been gouged a few times. And remember that they held down Indiana by 50 yards because of the safety at the end of the game. So I think that, can they do anything? Can they minimize their areas of concern on offense, the passing game, and can they create a little bit more disruption in pass defense? I think that would probably make me feel a little bit stronger about this team at this point. But I still think they're a very good team, no matter what the final tally is at the end of November.
Yeah, I think the things that have come through, or at least showing through right now, that we thought that they would be the running game, the offensive line. That is there. Again, I'm not going to dock them too much for 4-ish yards per carry against Minnesota, because I think they just totally dialed it back once they got ahead. And they were dominating the game. And Bo Stevens went out. Good news that he sounds like he's going to be able to come back for the Oregon game, because that's a pretty good piece right there. And then I feel like the defense has actually exceeded my expectations. I thought they would be better than last year, but they right now, Scott, would be the best. I mean, I know it's not going to hold, and I put this in my column that posted Thursday morning. By far, they're like 234 per game allowed. The best ever under Ferentz is 270, which was the 2022 team. And then the best ever under Fry was like 253 per game. So they're ahead of all those right now. Again, it's not going to hold with Oregon and USC coming up and Nebraska, but they are better than I expected on defense, and probably worse than I expected in the passing game. So I feel like that balances out. They're actually worse also, much worse than I thought they were going to be punting. I know that's a minor thing, but they're 108th right now in the nation in punting. Do you know that? That was in my column also this morning. And I feel like Dakin's got to step it up here going into the punt team. Because there was a punt the other day where it was a coffin corner punt. I think they punted from like the 39. TJ Hall's down there to down it. It goes into the end zone. Come on, guys. That's the kind of stuff that you're going to have to do against Oregon and USC, and on the road at Nebraska, whatever. You got to do that stuff. You got to pin them back there with your defense. Pin them back at the one like Torrey Taylor used to. I looked at Dakin, the team average right now. I know it's a typical Iowa podcast, right? We're talking punting, but their team average is like 7 yards less than when Torrey Taylor was a senior. So it's a significant difference. It's not caught up with them yet. It kind of has, actually, with 2 blocks, but even subtract the blocks out, they're still way behind what I thought that would be. So those are some of the areas I'd like to see improve. And one last one I would say would be, what are they going to do at middle linebacker? They got 3 options now. Jaden Montgomery has played well in relief of Jaden Harrell, who is now coming back from injury, especially after the bye. You expect him to be more readily available. Phil Parker said he's still wearing the left knee brace, but you got Cam Buffington there. We've been talking about him for a long time. He got the 2 reps the other day, and that was another thing I put in the 6 things they got to fix address going into November. What's Phil Parker going to do at middle linebacker? I'll give you the floor here before we move into the next topic.
Right, that is a question mark, and I mean here's something to be concerned about, frankly, and that is the next 2 teams on their schedule. Oregon leads the Big Ten in rushing offense at 237 yards per game, and USC has 203 yards per game. And it's not a power style of offense like Iowa is and Iowa likes to compete against. It's a speed-based system, and it's tempo and it's fast, and you've got to be prepared. And so, which means at middle linebacker, you're going to have to get your calls quick, and you're going to have to get your run fits quick, because they are very fast, their tempo, and they could slash and dash you. And I think they probably will get slashed and dashed a few times. And it's just, well, the other team's good too, and it's gonna happen. They're just gonna have to keep up. But frankly, that middle linebacker is going to be a big question, because is Jaden Harrell clearly number one, or was he just kind of the next guy in? They kind of just left him there until he got hurt. Is Jaden Montgomery better than him? And if so, he should play, no question. Or do they take it? With Cam Buffington, you've got this yin-yang situation, which is by far the most athletic player they've got at that position. No question. I mean, he's awesome. However, you're out of position. You're the one making the calls, all those types of things. That's not anything. Phil always defers to knowledge over physical prowess. Yeah. And we've seen it at defensive back over and over again, and we'll probably see it here too. So I kind of think Montgomery will end up being the guy, at least against Oregon.
Yeah, I think so too. He's look at the defense, what they've done with Montgomery in there. Again, it's a team thing for sure, and it's not just Montgomery, but the yards they've allowed: Wisconsin 209, and a lot of that was late. Penn State 266, Minnesota 133. So they're averaging a little over 200 yards per game since Montgomery took that spot. So I'm sure he'll probably go with Montgomery against Oregon, and then it'll be interesting if Montgomery falters or if he gets hurt. Then what does Phil do? That's the question, I think. Yeah. It'll be interesting to find out.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Scott, you know what's great about Game Day Men's Health? They legitimately and truly do care about how they're helping you. I just finished a round of blood work this past week. That's part of this testosterone replacement therapy process. You check your level. You don't just they don't keep just giving you shots constantly. You got to see where you're at, get the levels right, just like with any kind of medication. Yeah. And when I started Game Day Men's Health about 1.5 years ago now, it's been almost. I was definitely in the low testosterone range, and now they told me you're overachieving with Tia. Nice. That's on over the high end, but it's safely over the high end. But no side effects so far. So only dialing back the dosage a little bit, so I'm just gonna have a tiny bit less tea. But it's been great. A weekly tea shot does wonders for your mood, your physical performance, your stamina, your weight. As we age, our testosterone does decline for a variety of reasons, but you can reverse that trend with the help of Game Day Men's Health. Get connected with them for a private, no obligation, free consultation at GameDayMen'sHealth.com, or stop by one of their locations in Ankeny, West Des Moines, or North Liberty, or Naperville, Illinois. Look at all those fancy graphics Aiden's got up there for Game Day. You don't need me talking about it. Just look at the fun graphics, folks.
All Matt Van Winkle. He did these, so credit to him.
Nice. Thank you, Matty Van Winks, or Van Woke, as Hassel calls him, right?
Yeah. It's been, I echo everything you say about Game Day Men's Health. I'm having my blood work done here in a couple weeks, and been pretty happy for the most part with everything that's going on, and making a few slight adjustments that help me long term. And sleeping and is always a good option when you're with this, and the more you work out, the more your body kind of is able to relax at night, and testosterone's been able to help me do that. So very, very happy with it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Game Day Men's Health, for being a part of our show and helping us bring this show to all our listeners out there. Let's talk about a graphic that BTN put up this week, and I thought it was a good one just to kind of throw out there. Aiden's got it up there. There are still 5 2-loss teams, Scott, in the Big Ten. We know Ohio State and Indiana and probably Oregon are 1, 2, 3 at this point. But there are 5 teams with 2 losses in the Big Ten right now. Iowa 6-2, for those not seeing the graphic. Michigan 6-2, Nebraska 6-2, Washington 6-2, USC 5-2.
Which of those teams, Scott, do you feel like has the best chance to work its way into the 12-team college football playoff?
I think it's Washington. And again, this is where schedule matters in the Big Ten. You look at who they play. Well, first of all, who they lost to, which was Ohio State, and then they went on the road at Michigan and lost, which happens. Going 3 hours east and playing at 9 a.m. But the rest of their schedule: at Wisconsin, Purdue at home, at UCLA, and then Oregon at home. And Oregon is their arch rival. And as much as we used to talk about the Apple Cup and the Civil War with Oregon, these teams hate each other more. And so it has a really strong opportunity to get to 9-2, and then on Thanksgiving weekend plays Oregon for all the marbles. And 2 years ago they played twice, once in the regular season and one of the best games of the year, and then in the Pac-12, really the final real Pac-12 championship game, and Washington won both, and then ended up in the national title game. So I think their path to 10-2, which is what you really want to shoot for. I think if you can get to 10-2, you're really strongly in the conversation. And I think that team has the best path. And I would say Michigan is close second, because it plays Purdue this week at home, has a week off, goes to Northwestern to play at Wrigley, then it goes to Maryland.
So it should be 9-2 going into the Buckeyes.
It very much could be. And then Ohio State it concludes with, which Ohio State hasn't won against Michigan, as we know, since 2019, and we'll hear that quite a bit coming forward.
Good cases for those. I feel like the nice thing is about all this is it's going to shake itself out. Washington plays Oregon at home. Iowa plays Oregon at home. So, you take a look at that, let's say Oregon loses both, then
they play USC
then what happens?
at home.
Yeah. We don't know. I mean, Oregon's stats are amazing, but they did lose the only real consequential game they've played so far. So that's interesting. So here's USC's path, which is kind of interesting. I said 5-2 for them. They've got a pretty tough November here, Scott. At Nebraska, home against Northwestern. You feel like they'll take care of that one. That's a Friday night game. Then they're home against Iowa. That'll be very interesting to see where those teams are at that point. At Oregon the following week, and then home against UCLA. And that's not even necessarily a gift. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get from UCLA. So, but I would say with that schedule, if they could win out, then I really like their chances to make the playoff, because they'd be 8-1 in the Big Ten with a loss to Notre Dame. Now that loss at Illinois is a little bit of a scar, but I don't know. They'd probably have enough then at that point if they win at Oregon. So it's going to be fascinating. All those teams. I mean, Nebraska's probably. Nebraska's a 6.5-point home dog. We're going to talk about that game a little later against USC. So that tells you how good odds makers think USC is out of this group. So I would probably put Iowa, third or fourth among this group, most likely. It kind of just depends on if you think Iowa can beat Oregon or USC can beat Oregon on the road.
Right. I mean, I think if you look at that group in totality, and if who could go to the playoff if they're automatically 10-2, USC is number one because of who they played. And the Illinois loss, it was the last play of the game, field goal on the road. Again, they played at 9:00 body time. Then they went on the road to play Notre Dame and what could be the final USC Notre Dame game, which is kind of crazy to think, and lost there. But that happens. Now USC does have some deficiencies especially on defense, that will cost them against some good opponents. But we're not looking that way quite yet. I think that their passing game is elite. I mean, they're number one in the Big Ten. They've averaged 500 yards a game and offense, so they can sling it everywhere. I think, if I was to say, okay, now if Michigan gets to 10-2, well, they'll beat Ohio State, and of course they'll get it.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't think that's going to happen this year. But I didn't think it was going to happen last year either. So I don't know. Washington would be one where they'd be in strong contention, but I wouldn't call it automatic because then they would have to at 10-2 because then they're early and their only win would be Oregon. That's in the big picture like that, and that's you're getting in dangerous territory where an SEC team could be 9-2 or 10-2, and I would think Nebraska it would be a solid contender for that. But what is their biggest win right now? It's probably Cincinnati in the opener. And then they play USC. They go to UCLA, which, as we've seen, UCLA is a really mercurial team since they fired Deshaun Foster. They won 3, then they got annihilated by Indiana, but that doesn't surprise me. But then they go to Penn State. And I don't think Penn State's going to be the easy out that some people think they are. I think they're very much capable. I think this weekend they're capable of really battling Ohio State. I mean, they want to throw it all out there, and then they wrap up with Iowa, and we know that Iowa's had success against Nebraska over the years. They haven't lost over in Lincoln since 2011. So I think that Nebraska's in a tough category, and then finally with Iowa, I think 10-2. If they run the table, they're in. Do you?
Okay. I was going to ask that.
I think I would put them number 2 behind USC if they're 10-2, because then you start to go, all right, who is their best loss? Because we did this when we did the mock selection, and we were looking at losses as much as victories, and it's like, well, who did you lose to? They lost by 5 to Indiana, who has boat raced the entire world. They lost, at Iowa State, which isn't looking quite as great as it once did, but hey, it's early season. Rivalry game on the road, 54-yard field goal in the final minute.
Yeah.
That doesn't cost you. So I think if Iowa goes 10-2, Iowa's in, and Iowa may even host a game.
Wow. Well, that's what I say. If they can get ranked in this first CFP and then beat Oregon again, it looks like Iowa's a 6.5-point dog to start. So it's going to be a tough uphill climb, but. I think if they get ranked and then they beat Oregon, then it's going to be hard to not inch up into that top 12. I feel like, especially if you go win at USC and win at Nebraska. I mean, that'd be a good finish,
Right.
If you're, especially with the margins of the Minnesota-Wisconsin games, but
they'll be 8-1 in the Big Ten.
Yeah, right. With the one loss being to
Indiana,
probably unbeaten Indiana. And probably will be Indiana's toughest game. We'll see how they fare at Penn State. But, man. Anyway, Hockey Ween. Have you heard of Hockey Ween, Scott?
I just
November 1st. It's November 1st. The Iowa Wild hosting the Tucson Roadrunners. 6 p.m. at the Casey Center. That's this Saturday. The first 1,500 fans in the building get to take home a packable trick-or-treat bag. Kids under 12 can enjoy trick-or-treating on the concourse, Halloween characters, spooky games, and more. Hockey Ween ticket package available online in partnership with the Slaughterhouse Haunted Experience. So go check out the Iowa Wild this Saturday. Might as well, right? Might as well. After I finish state cross country on Friday, we're going up to Fort Dodge on Friday. Can't wait.
Going up to Fort Dodge.
Yeah, Fort Dodge.
Well, I was going to say, if you're getting ready to go to Hockey Ween and checking out the Wild and the future of the Minnesota Wild, you might want to swing by Big Grove in Des Moines. Of course, it has awesome patios. It's a little chilly, but it's got that campfire chilliness to it. And I think that's perfect for the Midwest, and awesome patios and vibe. And then if you don't go there, you could go to Cedar Rapids, which I love, that right there in downtown Cedar Rapids by Pickle Palace. By the river. You got Iowa City, which is in South Iowa City, and it's the best location to enjoy a Friday night experience in Iowa City, unless you're a student, which would be, of course, in the Ped Mall. And then they have the OG in Solon, and they're building one in Omaha. So food is terrific there. Great place to stop and eat before you go to the Wild game. And if you want to check in and drink an Easy Eddie, it's their signature beer. It's a wonderful IPA. Citrus Surfer is also a good one, their neighborhood beer. And we're still in October, officially, so have their Oktoberfest. And while you're celebrating Iowa, don't forget the 1939, the Ironman, and what Niall Kinnick did for the Hawkeyes way back when. So go ahead and take a spin out to Big Grove. It's a great place, wonderful ambiance, and outstanding food.
Hey, let's talk about Kaden Wetjen. Got to unmute myself before we do that. Kaden Wetjen, what a remarkable thing that's happening with this young man. What a story. What a story. He's got 4 kick return or punt return touchdowns in the last 9 games for Iowa. He had the 100-yarder in the bowl game. Has 3 this year, 2 on punts, 1 on kickoff. And he's the Iowa's leading receiver now, believe it or not, with only 16 catches. But hey, he's the leading. Someone has to be. It just shows they're implementing more in the offense. But you asked a question to LeVar Woods. I thought it was a terrific question. Where he ranks in punt returners or kick returners, whatever, return men in Iowa history, because he is now tied with Tim Dwight, the Tim Dwight, for the school record of 5 touchdowns on return and those on kick and punt returns. And he had a 6th one called back against, I think it was Northern Illinois? It was last year.
Yeah.
In one of those games early, he had one called back. So with a questionable.
Oh yeah.
So
I do remember that.
Mitch Fick has the video of that one. If he likes to point that out a lot. It's on Twitter if you want to check it out. But anyway, 5 confirmed touchdowns. What do you think, Scott? A lot of good names to sift through here.
If he was to retire today as an Iowa Hawkeye, he's number 1, period. And one guy that gets forgotten a lot that's kind of from our area is Khalil Hill, who was fantastic returner, both kick and punt. But Kaden Wetjen right now is number 1 in Big Ten history in punt return average at 17.1 yards per career punt return average. Number 1 in the Big Ten history. He's number 3 in kickoff return average in Big Ten history, behind Amir Smith-Marset and I think it's Stan Brown, who played 50 years ago. So, I mean, we're talking just incredible era and history that he's doing. I mean, he's already got in punt returns 8 games, 719 yards in punt returns in just a very short period of time. And that's his career, but it's still just the way he's able to do everything. I mean, his 95-yarder against who was it? UMass, tied for the longest not only in school history but in Big Ten history as a punt return.
Wow.
It started, the perfectly blocked punt return or kickoff return against Rutgers.
Yeah. What
happened the other day? Poor punter from Minnesota, gets smoked by KJ Parker.
Little KJ Parker. Yeah.
Yeah. But they've had so many really good ones over the last going back, of course, to Tim Dwight, who's kind of the OG, but Desmond King was really good. You look at Amir Smith-Marset. In fact, I don't know if you remember this, Chad, when they played at Nebraska in that one 56-14 game, and he gets all the way to the 12. I think it was like the opening kickoff of the second half. Gets to the 12-yard line, and Geno Stone gets called with a hold at the 12-yard line that he forces him to come back out. If he got that extra 12 yards, he would be number 1 in kickoff return history in Big Ten play.
Wow.
So that was pretty incredible.
Yeah, Amir was unbelievable on kick returns, especially.
And then Charlie Jones, Cooper DeJean, as we know.
Yeah, Cooper DeJean was pretty good.
Desmond was really good. So there were a lot of really good returners, but I think, you tell me what if I'm crazy here or not, he reminds me so much of Dante Hall. And I covered Dante Hall in 03 when he had 4 punt returns or kick returns for touchdowns in 4 consecutive games. And then he had another one in the playoff game later in the season. Just his thickness, his lower body thickness, his quickness, agility, and then overall speed. It just makes him so good at everything because he's fearless, he catches the ball, but he's able to make a quick, decisive move and then adjust when necessary. And he follows his blocks, and the blocking has been outstanding as always. We're basically, you were a classmate of Tim Dwight at City High and then at Iowa, so we're the same age group with him. And he was great, and he had probably better overall speed, but I think Kaden Wetjen's the best. And I think the numbers bear it out. You're number one in Big Ten history as a punt returner, and you're already a defending All-American. I kind of got to put you there.
Yeah, wow, that's big time commentary there. I did go to high school and elementary school actually with Tim Dwight. He was 2 years younger than me. We ran track together. He was a little faster than me, just a little. But I rode his coattails to state team championship. I was texting him during the game, and he said this to me, and I don't think he would mind me sharing because it's all complimentary of Kaden. Because I texted him like that Kaden had tied him. I was like, wow, that's crazy to think about. Like he's actually tied you. And he's like, he's on the level, seeing it all. He'll have another before the end of the season. The kid is fun to watch. Great win, he said. So, so he's watching this too. He's loving it. Tim Dwight is. And I think that when you put anybody's name with Tim Dwight in anything, especially to me, because, he means a lot to me personally, and also just, not only as a friend, but also as somebody who's covered the Hawkeyes for a long time. Tim Dwight was finished 7th in the Heisman voting, in 1997. That's pretty amazing. And Wetjen is there. I loved what LeVar Woods had to say about him the other day, Scott. He was like, he has really taken it seriously. He is obsessed. He is obsessed with punt returning and being better at everything. And we're seeing that also in his, being used on reverses. He had the winning touchdown against Penn State. My God. He was the guy they went at to pick at John Nestor against Minnesota early in that game with a 28-yard pass, the longest of the game. He's doing it all right now, and he looks so good doing it. I mean, his instincts are just so tremendous. Like he knew he went exactly where he needed to go. That's why it just defies. It boggles the mind how bad he was against Iowa State. Like it was like so out of character for him to be so bad in that game. And he took it. I tweeted this the other day. He wore it. He took it. He owned it on Tuesday. He came to media that week. I thought that showed me something right there. And he's been unbelievable ever since. Unbelievable.
Right. I mean, he was in part responsible for that loss, because of the things he did and, penalty right after. And a lot of that is, it's kind of like with Mark Gronowski early. And when you feel the pressure of the moment to perform, that a lot of times the pressure gets to you because your emotions override your sanity. And I think that's kind of what happened to him that day. But to his credit, that doesn't define him at all. What's defined him is this, but even a bigger picture, I mean, Iowa has been historic in the way it's handled walk-ons in his career. I mean, we know that's legendary for who has done what. He is right now at or near the top of the list when you're talking about greatest walk-ons, because he walked on at a junior college, walked on in Iowa, didn't get a scholarship till this summer, and that was kind of a big deal. And then finally he did, and here he is. And I know some people are wondering with the JUCO rulings and et cetera, if that's an issue, whether he'll come back. I kind of don't think so. I think it's time to go to the NFL. But, I think it's also time for something athletic, Chad.
Sorry to distract you there, Scott. While you were talking, I was pouring myself a tall glass of non-alcoholic beer. It is the second week that the Athletic Brewing Company is sponsoring Legends and listeners. And I wanted to take a moment to crack open a can of Witt's Peak, one of their many fine products from Athletic Brewing Company, America's largest dedicated non-alcoholic brewer. Athletic is the choice for me as a non-drinker, but as someone who used to enjoy his share of beers, it's still nice to get all of the taste, none of the alcohol. Witt's Peak is a Belgian-style white. It's lively, luminous, hues of wheat, coriander, and citrus, paying homage to the old world style, smooth, silky, and curiously savory. The Athletic Brewing Company has a ton of options, and I've got a whole garage full of it right now. I'm so excited about that. It is October 30th, so it's not January 1st yet, but you can skip the resolutions and start now with Athletic Brewing. Visit all their products at athleticbrewing.com or just stop into your favorite grocery store. They're more than likely to have a really good selection of Athletic because they are distributed
everywhere. They're in Connecticut now and San Diego, so they can distribute to the whole nation very efficiently. Meantime, I'm going to sip on this Wits Peak as we finish the show. Athletic Brewing, fit for all times. So appreciate them being aboard. Really excited about this, Scott. Pumped. Now I can drink on the air.
Yeah, now you can drink on the air, and I should probably get me a nice, easy Eddie. Maybe I can have Big Grove send me a 6-pack, and then
come on, Big Grove, step it up.
Yeah, we can talk World Series.
I got 144 cans from the from Athletic, not the Athletic.
The Athletic. We gave you that. I want to know where.
Yeah, right.
I need that.
You do deserve some of this because they kind of stole your name.
Exactly, but no. Yeah, but my only fear is I get a little bit loose in some of my descriptions that could stray into non-Iowa.
Yeah, crack it open.
Guidelines.
Crack it open before we talk about the Nebraska USC game, all right?
There we go. That's what would do it. But, I think, Chad, if I do that, then I'm going to have to flush myself to get ready for that. And, if you're needing flushing in the Iowa City area, the best place to call is Ackerman Plumbing. It's time to discover how the plumbing industry can be when you choose a customer-first, independently owned and operated business like Ackerman Plumbing. Ackerman Plumbing services the Iowa City area, and we're thankful for their support here on Iowa Everywhere's Legends and Listeners and Instant Iowa. Ackerman is only in the residential plumbing business, so your calls matter and will always be answered in a timely manner. That is crucial if you got sump pump issues, water heater issues, or plugged drains. Whether it's for a plumbing emergency, routine service and maintenance, equipment replacement, or upgrades like tankless water heaters and water filtration systems, call Ackerman. We love a business that's growing. Ackerman is growing too. They're looking for another service tech. If that's you or you know someone, reach out to Ackerman. Shout out to the Ackerman team, Corey, Stacy, Aaron, Nathan, and all the rest. So visit ackerman-plumbing.com for 5-star residential plumbing services in the Iowa City region.
That stinks that they're not in Adel, Iowa, because I have an issue with our kid's bathroom. The tub is leaking. My father-in-law is really handy, but it's too involved for him to even do. We need Ackerman Plumbing. Come on, Ackerman, make the trip over here to Adel. I'll give you the best plug in the world if you take care of us, all right?
It sounds like you need a plug.
We definitely do. So let's talk about this Iowa-Oregon game. We got, we're almost an hour into this thing, but we got to talk about, we'll preview it next week, promise.
Yeah, right.
Big time. Because it is the biggest game for the Hawkeyes since... Scott, since when?
Well, I think in some ways, like last week we were talking about Penn State, where that ranked. You could really make a case that this is, as the season progresses, the biggest game since Penn State, Iowa in 2021, 3 versus 4. However, when you look at the big picture, that was in early October. We're talking about November football.
Yeah.
So November football, maybe somewhere in the 15 range. I think, when you're starting to win some of those tough games, I think those games were the ones that really stood out towards the end of the season. And, so I would say you're getting into that territory because 18 and 19, they lost too many games early, even though they were pretty good teams. And then, of course, 21, the 3 versus 4 game, but then they immediately lost a couple of games afterwards, fairly decisively to Purdue in Wisconsin. And then in 03, I think winning a championship on your home field matters. I think it's significant, but it's also not college football playoff significant, where I think this Oregon-Iowa game will be after, alongside BYU Texas Tech, one of the 2 biggest games in the country that day.
Wow. Yeah, it's the playoff era, definitely, or the 12-team playoff era, I should say, changes your perception just a little bit. I mean, the Iowa-Penn State game was in the 4-team playoff era, and certainly Iowa was in, at that point, they were 3 in the country. So, yeah, they're like playing for something pretty big at that point, but you still knew you had to win the Big Ten championship that year.
Yeah.
If you were going to go to the playoff, probably. I don't know if we thought. I mean, honestly, like this team is so much more complete than that 2021 team is. I feel like, personally, just because the line wasn't where it is now, the offensive line. You could argue the defense is on a similar plane. I think the quarterback play is certainly better. I think you just got a winner right now at quarterback for Iowa, a guy that knows how to win games. It's pretty exciting to think about.
Is better.
What's that?
The scheme is so much better now.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, right.
9 day.
I mean, you just have so much more confidence going into the game with Tim Lester right now. Mm-hmm. Just what he's going to come into the game with. It's going to be smart, whatever it is. And Phil Parker and Seth Wallace and Kelvin Bell are going to have the defense ready to go after 2 weeks. They might not win the game. They might get burned some, but you just feel good about the preparation right now on all sides of the ball. And now it's a matter of execution.
Yeah, and I do want to, illuminate even at this early stage just how good Oregon is statistically, and and a lot of that is a product of maybe who they've played, and they've looked sluggish at times with Wisconsin and Northwestern being those two. But I think Northwestern's better than we're giving them credit for. But they're number one in the Big Ten in yards per game rushing, and they're number one stopping the run. They're also number one in the Big Ten in yards per game passing, yards per attempt passing defense, percentage. They only allow 49% completion percentage. Yards per play, they're second, offense and third on defense. They have the most explosive plays in the Big Ten at 61, and they've allowed the fewest at 13. This is a very complete team that's got players at every position, and as Phil kind of said, the best team money can buy, and he's not wrong, because they lost a lot of really good players last year. This also, it's a team, though, that when you look game by game, and they blew out a couple of teams big time early, the weakest teams, Oklahoma State, Oregon State, Montana State, well, it's FCS, that they got beat decisively by Indiana. It was a 10-point game, but they were not the best team on the field. At Penn State, it was back and forth, tough environment. Penn State was playing at a high level. They crush Rutgers. I mean, just obliterate Rutgers, 56-10. But then they play at home against Wisconsin, and it just looked like, what are you guys doing? Do you even care? Yeah. It was kind of like when they played Purdue last year. They won 35-0, but it felt like, we're just going to play. So I'm anxious to see which version of Oregon. If they play at a high level, it's going to be tough to beat. It really will be. However, if Iowa can get it to play its style and get into a slugfest, and it's back and forth, then you got to feel like Iowa, even though it had struggled in close games up until the Penn State game, it's still comfortable in close games. And and I think this is another one of those.
Well, it's certainly, the environment will be unmatched. I think that the Kinnick crowd is going to be unbelievable for that game. They've kind of gotten a taste of it now with Indiana and Penn State, and now it's like 4 times more importance of these games. Like you kind of hung with Indiana, and you did hang with Indiana, but you know what that felt like, and I think the crowd's ready to make a difference in this game, and it'll be interesting to see who can execute in this game. Obviously, you want Iowa to hang in it as long as you can. That's going to be the plan for Kirk Ferentz, no doubt about it. Let's try to get to the fourth quarter. Let's try to get to the fourth quarter and win it there. But yeah, the defense for Oregon does, that's something you need to really be aware of as you're going into this as an Iowa fan. Like, it's going to be tough to score on them. You're thinking about stopping them. Like, we got Phil Parker and Seth Wallace and Zach Lutmer, and Wampa's playing better, and Graves is playing like a maniac, and our defense is looking good, but you are going to have to go score some points too in this game. And so, we'll see what Lester has cooked up in that one, but it's going to be so much fun. I hope it's a good game. I hope it's a good game. I don't want it to be like, 34-10 or something like that. I want to watch a good game. I want to watch a high stakes, really good game in Kinnick, where Iowa has a chance to win.
Yeah. Well, it was like going into the Indiana game. I'm like, I use the phrase, I don't know if it'll be 31-0 or 10-10 at halftime. And it's capable of being both against Oregon, and if you just watch the Wisconsin game, you're going to be pretty confident. You're going to be, okay, if they play like that, you've got a shot. If you see them play Rutgers and you know how you played against Rutgers, then you're going to go, oh, man. And I think what you got to do is think of it rationally, which is, this is going to be a tough opponent. This is the best opponent you've played all year other than Indiana, and it's in that category. Can you compete the way, can you make them play your style? It's kind of like, to use a wrestling match. If you're a mat wrestler, can you make them wrestle you on the mat? And that may, just force your will and their style over 7 minutes. Can you do that over 60 in football? If you can, you got a shot. And then, then you've got, Drew Stevens, who's been a little more inconsistent than he'd hoped, but still has a lot of capabilities and has had success. If not, at least you had a game in November that mattered a lot. And so I think Iowa's more than capable of competing. I think they're playing it at a high level, probably the best I've seen since 2020 as a team. Because at the end of that year, I felt like this year was really comparable to that. That they were ascending, they were playing well, they're playing hard, and I think this year they're doing the same thing. And the only team that year that I felt like going into the postseason, if they had that they wouldn't have a chance against, would have been Alabama, which won it. Everybody else they would have competed with.
Sure. Well, it'll be fun to preview that game next week on Legends and Listeners, but there are a few Big Ten games in. Mm-hmm. By the way, real quick, Iowa has yet, against Indiana and Penn State, they've made a lot of mistakes. I mean, think about the early interception in both games, very early on first drive interception in both games.
Led to touchdowns.
Yep, turned into touchdowns. Also, don't forget the end of the half fiasco against Indiana, where Merriweather gets the penalty, and then they just let him run, break a couple tackles, couldn't tackle, then they give up the field goal to tie it at 10-10, and then, and of course your guy gets hurt.
And then an end of half fiasco against Penn State too.
Exactly. Yeah. No kidding. Wow. The last minute of the first half, 30 seconds of the first half in both games were disasters.
Yeah. First minute and last minute,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So clean that stuff up and you're going to have a real good chance to pull this upset. And wow, what attention that would get. Do you think it'll be big noon, Scott? What's your intel? We'll find out this weekend.
I'll say this, and pardon my ignorance. I'm not sure if it's a CBS #1 pick or it's a Fox. If it's Fox, I think that yes, they'll take it. If it's CBS, they'll take it. It's #1 in the Big Ten, clearly. And the only one that's really in that category would be Indiana and Penn State. And and they're able to wait. So that's why they're going to, because you never know if Penn State upsets #1 Ohio State and then Penn State's playing Indiana next week, there's going to be some juice with that too.
For sure.
So it's understandable that they, let's just see what happens. I mean, if they get blown out, then who cares? And we move on. And maybe the #2 network is also, hedging that, saying, I don't know if we want this game if, you know what I mean? So anyway, I think that's probably, so I'll say this, it'll be the #1 pick. I'm just not sure if it'll be at big noon or it'll be at the 2:30.
You would think the big noon people would want to come to Iowa City and not State College, you would think in this situation. So if it is Fox, then I hope it is. That'd be fun. Mm-hmm. Get a big noon home game. For last big noon home game would have been Michigan 2022. Is that right? Probably.
That sounds right. Yeah. It was basically a coin flip between Iowa, Indiana, and Illinois, Ohio State. But when Iowa lost to Iowa State, that's when they decided, we're going to go off them. But again, it makes perfect sense. I mean, it's a Big Ten game, and it's one of the biggest of the year. They don't have, I think it's ESPN that has BYU and Texas Tech, so I imagine that's where College Game Day will go. Because they were never coming to Iowa City, and so I think Big Noon would probably set up shop here, even if it is CBS, which I don't know that it would be. So I think
okay. Well, a couple. What's that?
They love it here, actually.
Yeah. Great. What do you think of so Hawkeye fans? I think should be tuning in to, enjoy your Saturday. If you want to watch Ohio State, Penn State, a big noon, go for it. But I would build your Saturday, folks, around the 6:30 game because you can get your eyes on 2 November opponents for the Hawkeyes. USC at Nebraska is the 6:30 p.m. game on NBC. I'm gonna try to make some time for that one Saturday night for sure. That one is very interesting to me, Scott. USC is a 6.5-point favorite. Is Matt Rule, on the way to Penn State? Is he going to get a contract extension? What do you make of this game? I think it's a interesting one, and Iowa fans can just watch with interest because one of the teams you're going to face is going to win, one's going to lose.
I think it could be a shootout, which makes it exciting. First of all, I mean, USC averages 530 yards a game and 42 points a game. So they have prolific numbers, especially through the air with Jaden Mayava. And Mekhi Lemon is one of the best receivers in the country. So you're going to see some fireworks on that side. Now, Nebraska is also prolific in some ways. I mean, they average 400 yards a game and 35 points per game. So I think that's something that you might be seeing this game run into the 30s, maybe even the 40s. And so that's kind of intriguing. And, total defense, Nebraska is clearly better than USC. USC is not very good defensively. But then there's, some things like Nebraska really struggles against the run. They're 15th in the Big Ten, but with USC, they average 200 plus yards a game rushing. So I think USC is going to be able to do a lot of what it wants on offense. But who do you want to win? Well, if you remove the emotion from it,
right?
Who do you want to win? And I look at it this way. I don't think it matters. I mean, I don't think you have a rooting interest. I remember not that long ago, even though Wisconsin was a bigger, more important rival than Nebraska was, but people hated Nebraska more. And so they had that tug of war when they'd be in the West Division. It's like, yeah, it hurts us, but I really hate Nebraska. And so I don't know. What do you think, Chad?
I think that I think Iowa matches up pretty well with Nebraska, honestly. I feel good about Iowa winning that game at this very moment. Just because I think the physicality that Iowa can bring into game 12 of the season with the run on the road can be a real advantage if it can keep that edge going. And I also think that the defense matches up well against Raiola. So, they'll cover and let the 4-man rush go. And we saw against Minnesota, he'll give up a sack. If you just cover. So I like the matchup there. So I feel like I think USC is going to win this. But Nebraska's, I think they've got this crazy streak also of like winless against ranked teams. What is it like? Do you know it? I saw a stat on it. It's like 0-24 or something like that.
Yeah, it's been since.
And USC is ranked. So they're going to be gunning for that for sure. Yeah. But I would say, go ahead.
I was going to say it will be a crazy atmosphere because they're wearing black. They're wearing black, to honor Iowa, their favorite team. And I'm just kidding. Yeah. But it's a night game, and like Matt Rule said, they're coming for us. They're not coming for the other team. They're coming for us.
The network's coming for USC, folks.
Yeah. So they're coming there. Great atmosphere. It'll be sold out, and as it always has, and all the seats will be filled this time. And I think it'll be. I think I would pick USC. I don't know about covering, but I do think USC will outscore Nebraska in a shootout. And but it's gonna be entertaining. Let's just put it that way. If you like to see up and down football, this is the game for you this weekend. Whereas Ohio State, Penn State, you don't know what you're gonna get. Mm-hmm. It could be a very competitive game.
Yeah,
but it also could be a blowout. I don't know which one you're gonna get.
I think if you're an Iowa fan, I would say root for USC. Root for USC. They're going to beat Northwestern at home next week, and they'll be 7-2 then. If Iowa were to beat Oregon, they'll be either way. If USC 7-2, Iowa 6-3, 7-2. you go in there with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. You're not like expected to win. You can go in and maybe catch them looking ahead to Oregon just a little bit, because they got Oregon the next week and then UCLA, the rival of the next week. Maybe you can catch USC sleeping on little old Iowa. Whatever Mike Grimm said. Lowly.
Morons.
Morons. Hope you guys heard the early part of the show where we gave you the explainer on all that. Anyway, good show, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good. And we'll be excited next week to bring a preview of the biggest game at Kinnick in several years. Let's just say that.
Sounds good. Enjoy your Saturday away from Kinnick anyway. I will enjoy my Saturday off. Hopefully a good state cross-country meet. We'll talk later. Chad Leistikow, Scott Dochterman, legends and listeners every Thursday here on Iowa Everywhere.